Hello, I'm Jyotika. Welcome to my channel. In today's class, we'll do a predicted paper 3 for issues and debates for the coming May-June 2025 AQA A-Level Psychology. This lesson is useful for both those who are doing the UK curriculum as well as the international curriculum. Predictions are as per the UK curriculum, but questions are relevant even to international students for their practice. I'm a private tutor in psychology AQA. 9+ years of experience I'm having in helping AQA GCSE and A level students achieve their A and A stars. So if you're looking for tuition with me, you can contact me. I've left my contact details in the description box and pinned comment below. I have done two videos in this series previously, the predicted paper for approaches paper 2 and predicted paper for biopsychology paper 2. You can find those videos on my channel just before this one. And in the approaches video, I have explained where these questions are coming from and how likely they are in the paper. I don't want to repeat that whole discussion, but I just want you to know this is not a guaranteed paper. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called predicted. It's just a best educated estimate of what can come. So you can think of it as the questions, the topics you need to prioritize for the 2025 paper. Of course, you need to do everything undoubtedly, but these are the ones you need to focus on a little more. Okay, let's take a look at the first question. Using an example, explain how a theory can be socially sensitive. Before looking at the command term or marks or assessment objectives, one thing which comes to my mind, like typical mistake by students, when they see the word socially sensitive, they assume that it means that the theory has to be beneficial to society. So sensitive is which is beneficial and insensitive is which is not beneficial. The term socially sensitive means that it is a theory which is questionable in its application to society. So it's that they don't use the term insensitive, but it has the potential for being insensitive. That is what they mean. So don't go very literally by the term. Just think about those theories which have such proposals which could lead to some problems in society. Okay, so before we consider the question further, let's just brainstorm and think of which possible theories we could be giving here. Also, keep in mind a theory has been asked for, so don't make the mistake of giving some study, like some particular research instead. Make sure your focus is on a theory. I'm sure for most of you, the theory that's coming to mind right now is the maternal deprivation theory. Because when you've done AO3 for this theory, you've definitely looked into the potential implications for mothers especially. So this is one very popular choice. Another one could be the psychodynamic theory, which you've learned about in approaches. The assumption that females have an inferiority complex, no doubt it comes under gender bias also, but of course socially sensitive as well, because it has implications for an entire gender in society as to how they would be treated in terms of equality with the other gender, with men. So that is another one. These are the ones coming to my mind from year one. Generally, for memory type of topic, it's too objective, too cognitive. We don't have much of social sensitivity, although right now maybe I'm not able to bring to my mind. Maybe you can think of something that's sensitive in that area. From attachment, it's largely Bowlby's theories. So either the maternal deprivation one, or maybe some of you can also take internal working model. That also has implications of putting a lot of pressure on parents for being responsible for all possible developmental, like be it emotional, intellectual, all sorts of outcomes of their children. So it's holding parents like overly responsible for what happens with their children. Then from approaches, I was able to think of one. Psychopathology, not exactly, but schizophrenia. Actually, it's in year two. There are socially sensitive theories like the family theories of expressed emotion or double binding. Again, it has the potential to really hold parents responsible for a primarily genetic condition like schizophrenia and blame them excessively for the outcomes of the child, like for the child having a serious disorder of that nature. Again, as of now, I can't bring to mind, but perhaps in psychopathology you've come across some other such theories. So you could suggest those as well. Of course, social influence chapter I think has a lot of material for social sensitivity. One which comes to my mind right now is conformity, theory of conformity, or obedience also alternatively works as well. If we say that the conformity theory is proposing that people out of desire for approval or being accurate, so NSI or ISI will conform to others. Again, the sensitivity in that is the implication is that people should conform or follow others. Similarly, in obedience, they should obey authority figures to maintain peace and order in society, which can be discouraging for those who want to stand independent and bring about reforms. From year two, again, one more theory which is coming to my mind, if you've done forensic, is the atavistic form theory. It has implications that not directly they don't say it, but they do imply that a certain race of people, given the descriptions they have proposed of the criminal profile, it's that race of people who are likely to be criminals. So it's unfair stigmatization and can lead to a lot of prejudice and discrimination against that group. I'm sure you can come up with many more theories which you've learned across the syllabus. Just be mindful that either you can give examples from year one or year two that they're flexible about. So, according to whichever options you have learned, what's coming to your mind, it's right as long as it's in the syllabus. Now, coming to the wording of the question and how we should approach it. Using an example means example is not the only thing, using it. So, only 1 mark for the example. Explain how a theory can be socially sensitive, meaning 2nd mark is for a general explanation of how theories can be socially sensitive. The example is just going to illustrate that point. So don't give only the example. Explain generally also what is the social sensitivity consideration. I would like to take the maternal deprivation theory. As I said, it's the most popular one. So most students are going to be writing about it. Let's see how we can answer this question using that theory. I'm just making pointers. When you're writing in the paper, make sure to write complete sentences. Firstly, to begin with, I like to give the definition first before the example. So theory can be socially sensitive if it has negative implications for certain groups in society. So this answers the part on how the theory can be sensitive. Now coming to the example, Bowlby's maternal deprivation theory. We have to give a very concrete example. Don't just say it can be socially sensitive. Don't just say it can be harmful to mothers. Always give reasoning. Throughout your paper, no matter which answer you're writing, 2, 4 marks, 16 marks, regardless. Reasoning always has to be there. When they say in the mark schemes, your thorough understanding should be seen. Only when you provide reasons. So if you say something like, it will harm mothers. How, why, nothing is there. Doesn't show anything. So of course it's only for 2 marks, but in one line you have to point out exactly what harm can be caused to mothers. So if we go by this theory, it will end up blaming single parents also as such, but largely mothers, because as such Bowlby hasn't said that mothers are the only caregivers, but it does get discussed that way, because in most cases we see the mother is the caregiver. So single mothers might be stigmatized for working and not giving enough time to the baby, because we know otherwise it might be fine if the mother is dedicating quality time to the baby, even if she isn't able to give too many hours, that's fine. But just because Bowlby is saying that if the mother isn't available completely and for long durations during the critical period, that's really going to impact the baby. So that is what is resulting in stigmatization. And of course it tends to perpetuate, in fact reinforce gender stereotypes. They're already there, those stereotypes that mothers should be at home and they shouldn't work, and their primary duty is to take care of children. This theory is just further encouraging that view. You can give any one of these also as an example will be sufficient, like either gender stereotyping or stigmatization, but make sure you give a concrete example. Okay, so that is how we can answer this one. Let's look at the next one. Read the case study below and then answer the question that follows. Ruth, I'm hopeless at math. I was born to fail my GCSE and there's nothing I can do about it. Theo, I disagree. You need to find the motivation to want to do better and then you will. With reference to the above conversation, outline what is free will and determinism. This is partially AO1 and partially AO2, where they tell you outline what is free will and determinism. We see the outline command term so many times, I'm sure it's ingrained in our mind. Outline is AO1, 2 marks, because they just want to know what is free will and determinism. You'll give 1 point for each side. AO2 is 4 marks, whereby you will have to talk about how either free will or determinism is being reflected in the views of Theo and Ruth, particularly. Now, there are two ways of going about it. Write a separate paragraph for AO1 and a separate one for AO2. So, first, just explain in general what is free will and determinism. Next paragraph, talk about these two characters. Alternatively, which I would prefer for a debate type of question, like organization, I would prefer is one paragraph on what is free will definition plus which is the character showing it here and how they are showing it. Next paragraph, what is determination definition, which is the paragraph, which is the character showing it in this paragraph and how. So that is how I would arrange it. It's up to you. Make sure you're giving clear definitions of each side and explaining what the issue is about. And you're using wording from this situation to show exactly how who is supporting which side. Okay, so I'll just quickly make the pointers. Firstly, to define what determinism is, it is the idea that behavior is beyond the control of an individual. Another way of putting it would be that behavior is controlled by internal or external forces in which people don't have a choice. I would just say behavior is beyond the control of the individual. Now I would like to link it to the character. So this was my AO1 point, now giving the AO2 points. Definitely it's Ruth in this case who is supporting determinism. So first, very explicitly signposting it, specify. Ruth's view is deterministic. Now why are we saying that? Further reasoning or explanation. We will pick up wording in the answer to show exactly. So she says something like, I was born to fail my GCSE. It shows that she believes that it is not in her genes or in her innate ability to clear that exam. Now, of course, that is leading me to something, right? There are types of determinism and there is a biological type of determinism. Because when it comes to what is controlling her, she's not pointing out to any environmental factor. She's saying, I'm not born. That born word is very important here. So when she uses that term, definitely it is supporting biological determinism. So we can point out that next. See, 1 mark you're getting for the definition, 1 mark for saying why she is determinist, and your third mark can come from this detail that it is a biological view that she is supporting. So this shows biological determinism as she believes the innate genetic factors are resulting in her failing. What is not to be done in this answer is giving general examples of if a view is biologically determinist. Generally, for example, this gene, say 5-HTT gene is implicated in depression or COMT gene is implicated in schizophrenia. Those type of general AO1 examples are definitely not to be given only as much as is relevant to the given situation. In her situation, COMT, 5-HTT genes, those things are not relevant. So make sure in all these AO2 application questions, you're very focused. Of course, you have to give general definitions to explain better, and directly they are telling you outline what are these concepts. So definitely that is something you cannot ignore. But to go beyond that and give excessive detail, elaboration, which is not required at all, which hasn't even been asked, that is something for which you're not going to give credit. So when you come up with some point which is very obviously there, biological determinism has been suggested. You're not to stray away and start giving generally what you've learned about biological determinism from the textbook. You picked it up because her point was showing that. So in relation to her, only explain how it is being seen. Then my next paragraph would be about free will. This is the view that behavior is a choice of the individual or they can consciously control their behavior. So behavior is the conscious choice of the individual. Following the same structure, now I related to Theo. Theo's view is based on free will. Now to give further detail when it comes to free will. Sorry, firstly, linking to what is showing that he supports free will. You need to find the motivation to do better. That shows he believes that if someone has the motivation, consciously chooses to do something better, they can do it. That's why he's making that suggestion. So he believes that an individual can find to improve performance. Now to give further detail, when it comes to free will, we do not have any types. So in determinism, we had a type and we were able to add detail with that. Here we can add detail by further contextualizing. There's something more if you see in Theo's point of view. Just like when we looked at Ruth's point of view closely, there was this thing about her being biologically determinist. In Theo's view, he is challenging what has been proposed by Ruth. He's believing that behavior is not predetermined, like he's not agreeable with her at all. Rather, he's propagating personal agency. So we can take that for a detail as to how he's against the view of determinism. So we can say Theo actively challenges the determinist view of Ruth, supporting instead that personal agency plays a role. Okay, so how these answers are scored is for the outline part, definition part, you're getting 1 mark for saying what's determinism, one for saying what's free will, and next is for explaining why Ruth is being deterministic. Next is for explaining why Theo is supporting free will, and the remaining 2 marks, because it's a 6 marker, is for giving further detail or elaboration. So in Ruth's case, it was very obvious biological determinism. We just needed to emphasize on that. And in Theo's case, just showing further how he's challenging determinism. So for every point, you get a mark. Make sure you have 6 unique points in this way. Other possible points are you could also suggest what the free will versus determinism debate is in general. It is the debate over whether behavior is fully controlled by other factors, fully an individual's choice, or somewhere in between that. Okay. Coming to the next one, this time the 16 marker is likely from idiographic versus nomothetic because it hasn't been assessed for 16 markers so far. As always, a 16 marker question means that you're going to have 6 marks for AO1 and 10 marks for AO3. Be very clear on that. Now, very importantly in this question, refer to at least 2 topics you have studied in your answer. You're free to take either year 1 or year 2 topics. You could mix both. One could be year 1, one could be year 2. Make sure you finalize your topics before writing about them. So let's first brainstorm a few topics that are relevant here. When it comes to idiographic approach, any topic relating to a case study type of research or interview type of qualitative research that has been done can be taken up over here. So any case studies you've seen, HM, Phineas Gage, KF, those all can be discussed under idiographic approach. Of course, the topic area, not just, don't just barely name the study like HM. The topic area that it comes under is localization. So you could take localization, the topic, and make sure one case study you know well, like HM, you reference it throughout to make your AO1 and AO3 points better. Alternatively, psychodynamic approach. So one is localization, lateralization, the other is psychodynamic, where we have case studies like specifically like Little Hands or Ratman, which we can use throughout for concrete examples. Other possibilities of idiographic approach also depends on which options you have selected in year 2. If you've taken schizophrenia, for example, we have case studies there as well. So if you've taken it in year 2, we have a beautiful mind case study, John Nash, or alternatively Janet. So there you could take schizophrenia as the broader area, and those case studies would be the examples that you would be discussing throughout. Right now, this is what is coming to my mind, but any such case study area that you've seen, area which has research based on case studies or interviews, any qualitative approaches, even qualitative observations, you could take any of those for your idiographic topic area. Make sure one topic area is idiographic, the other is nomothetic. If you're going to take both idiographic or both nomothetic, it's going to be very difficult to bring about points from both sides. Like, it won't make much sense. For the nomothetic topic areas, any quantitative research type of area can be taken, which is most of it. So right from starting from social influence, you could take conformity, obedience, minority influence, anything over here will do. All support nomothetic. Experiments have been done in these areas. Attachment, strain situation, observations and experiments in that area as well. Memory is really good for this one. Like, I would like to take memory. So we have Peterson, Gordon and Batley, Talving and Sotka. Year 2 also there are lots of them. If you take Ising's personality theory from forensic, so the psychological cognitive biocognitive theory of criminal behavior. If you take stress from the options in second year, the fight or flight response, something like the GAS model. Amongst approaches also, of course, for idiographic, you have the humanistic approach. Gestalt is not directly there, but within humanistic, it is discussed to some extent. You can take it for idiographic. For nomothetic, again, there is a lot from approaches. Behavioral approach is a very good example of nomothetic, which is also seen in the two process phobia model. So you could be taking from psychopathology as well. There is so much to discuss in idiographic and nomothetic. Just finalize on two. Now, one question that comes to me a lot is, if they say at least two, can we take more than two? Of course, you can. That's why they are saying at least two, because they are very open to the idea that you take more. Two is the minimum, which they are suggesting. Then the next question that comes is, what do I suggest? I suggest only two. I just believe that, like, when we look at the quality of answers, those who take only two approaches, two examples, and use them throughout, they are able to make their points much more effective because they are able to show thorough reasoning. For example, let's say if they take HM for the idiographic approach, in the definition also they link to HM, in the strength weakness also they link to HM. It just shows the thoroughness of their understanding, that they can pick up any one study and all the idiographic points they can apply to it. Like, that is how well they've understood what is idiographic. They're able to analyze anything through that. But when you take one example, say from HM, another from KF, another maybe from Little Hands, it seems that I'm not saying you can't do that or it's wrong, it's right as long as you connect well. It just appears as if you've learned things in fragments. Like the question comes, why can't you take that one study only and do the evaluation of that only? Why did you have to switch to another study for the evaluation? Strictly my personal opinion, no hard and fast rule, is that you take one topic area for each side of the debate, no matter which debate it is, and use it throughout for your AO1 and for your AO3 points. Now, the question that comes besides this is, how much do we have to focus on the topics and how much do we have to focus on the debate? You have to think of this question as the topics are serving as examples of the points that you're making. Strictly examples. So, meaning that if I suggest the little hands case, I don't have to describe the whole case, aim, procedure, results, conclusion, that becomes totally irrelevant. The question is about idiographic approach. It is not about the case of little hands. So, as much of little hands as is relevant to whatever point I'm making about the idiographic approach, that much I have to discuss. I do not have to give the whole study. I do not have to evaluate the strength and weakness of the study for its own sake. How it reflects strengths and weaknesses of the idiographic approach is what I have to evaluate. So, throughout the answer, your focus has to be on the debate. You have to keep in mind I'm talking about idiographic versus nomothetic. Whatever I'm giving is in support of what I'm saying from the topic areas. The topic areas themselves are not in question. Otherwise, the question would have been discuss little hands case or discuss the strange situation studies. That is not what they have asked. So these are two different types of questions. Okay, so first let's see what we need to write for AO1. As you would expect, AO1 is all about explaining the debate. First, give a line on what the debate is about. Next, explain what is idiographic, what is nomothetic. Give the examples of the topic area, bring them in. Give some details about idiographic and nomothetic approaches. So, standard format of writing AO1. What is the debate about, firstly? It's a very unique debate compared to the others. Other debates about explanations of behavior, reductionist, holistic, determinist, free will, nature, nurture. This one is about what approach should be taken while doing research in psychology. Should we take a quantitative, generalizable approach, or should we take a qualitative, in depth approach? So, should it be in depth and qualitative, nomothetic, sorry, idiographic, or should it be focused on a few aspects and quantitative, which is nomothetic? After this, I would like to give each side and present my selected topic areas for examples. Some teachers or guides will tell you that you should immediately address the question. So, like they've told you two topic areas, you need to say, I will be discussing these two topic areas in my answer, and then only you should begin with the answer. There's no need for that. As you're going in a logical flow, you can introduce your topic areas. So, then coming to the first side of the debate, idiographic. It is the approach which does detailed investigation of selected behaviors. It heavily makes use of qualitative methods, including interviews, case studies, and qualitative observations, etc. Then I'll bring in the example. Example is I would like to take psychodynamic little hands. So first I'll name the area. So I can, when I'm writing, I could put it as one area in psychology which supports an idiographic approach is the psychodynamic theory of personality by Freud. And a prominent example of the type of research which he's done in this area, like idiographic research, is that of Little Hans, which was a case study of a young boy in the phallic stage who suffered from Oedipus complex, which ultimately resulted in identification with his father and healthy psychological development for the child. That is all I'm going to write about this case. Strictly one or two lines. I'm not going to summarize the case. I have to just link it to that area. Of course, I will refer to this case again while evaluating. But as of now, in the EO1 part, this is enough. EO1 is for 6 marks. I'm explaining the debate. There is not much scope to like full summarize or give full like reference to the study entirely. This much is enough. Then similarly, in the same structure, I would write about nomothetic approach. It is not a detailed investigation, rather it is a more superficial investigation, or we can say generalized broad investigation of again selected behaviors. So selected aspects of behaviors rather. For example, if they are studying memory, they separate out one specific aspect, like let's say duration, and they do a study on only that. Whereas someone doing a case study of memory would be looking at duration, capacity, storage, various storages, rehearsal, all those processes. So if you compare something like say a Peterson study, which is only about the duration of short-term memory, with something as detailed as an HM or KF study, you can see the difference between nomothetic and idiographic approach. So it heavily uses quantitative methods like experiments, correlations, surveys or questionnaires, and quantitative observations. Now, to introduce the example area, I would like to take a multi-store model. And what is the most prominent example of multi-store model, like a prominent research work done in this area? After all, it's how we should approach research. Peterson and Peterson's classic experiment on duration of short-term memory. So in this study, they introduced participants to many trigrams that they had to learn, and they had to do backward counting distracted tasks for varying intervals, which ultimately led to the understanding that duration of short-term memory is 18 seconds. So again, one or two lines on Peterson and Peterson, not more details than that. What it was about, procedure in a line, and what was the result or conclusion about short-term memory. When we say things like duration of short-term memory was investigated, before this we have said that we look at selected aspects, that becomes very clear. So the example I'm giving from the point of view that I need to justify the previous points that I have made. When I say that 18 seconds duration was established, I've said this is a generalized approach. So I'm showing what generalizable principle has come out of it. So many times students tell me we don't know, like when you say to don't summarize, just give one or two lines, which one or two lines are relevant? Those one or two lines are relevant which can illustrate the points which you have made earlier. Solely as much of that study as supports the points like you have made these. This is what a nomothetic approach is. That much you need to give. Similarly, for idiographic, we said that it is selected behaviors. So in Hans's case, Oedipus complex was entirely studied, not some aspect of it. So we are saying the whole complex was studied. Also, we made the point that case studies are used. So we have mentioned that it's a case study of Oedipus complex. So as much as links with what you've already said, that much you need to give. So this is what you can give for AO1 for idiographic versus nomothetic. If instead of this they ask you for any other debate, free will, determinism, nature, nurture, whatever it is, the structure has to be the same as I have presented here. Okay, now let's see what we can cover for AO3. I think this is one of those AO3s where nothing much is to be explained as to how to structure. Like it's very obvious. You should give one strength, one weakness of idiographic approach, one strength, one weakness of nomothetic approach. And of course, because you've been asked to refer to the topic areas, you must give examples from them throughout, no matter which point you're making. So it's very simple. 4 AO3 points are going to be there. One strength, one weakness of each side. As simple as that. And of course, your standard peel format. I don't need to keep saying it in every video, I know, but just to remind you quickly, the peel format for each point. Very easy to score on this. Many students worry a lot about issues and debates, but I think it's one of the easiest areas to score, especially when it comes to essays. Okay, my first point would be to follow the alignment which I'm going through. I'm always taking idiographic first because that's in the question. So first I'll give a strength of that approach. So my point is one strength of idiographic approach is that it gives rich insights into behavior. Now, to elaborate, using the little hands study, what do I mean by rich insights of behavior? What details were investigated which are very useful in understanding the psychodynamic theory? So, in Little Hans' case, through letters which were written by his father to Freud, so we can say through discussions with the father, we are able to understand various dynamics that took place. Like he had a hippophobia, and the dynamic in his family between the father taking a strict role, punitive role towards Hans, which led to castration anxiety, and Hans being attracted to his mother, which resulted in various dreams like the giraffe dream coming up, symbolizing all the conflict taking place, and the displacement of his fears onto the horses. So much is there. Also, how dream analysis helped Freud to uncover his true meaning of the dreams, like to separate the latent and manifest content, and then that is how he ultimately helped Little Hans. I know I've given a lot of points here, but just these are the suggestions of what you could write about. You don't have to write about everything, but two or three examples from here about the Little Hans case. So his hippophobia, for example, was understood because the muzzles of the horse used to resemble the father's. The muscles and the trainers used to resemble the father's mustache and eyeglasses. Those type of things were understood. As I mentioned earlier, the family dynamics. Here I'm just writing briefly, and you're writing to specify the conflict between father and Hans and the attraction towards the mother. That was understood. Also, the dream symbolism in the dreams. So many details, so many insights of what happens into the area. Again, when you're writing Peel, what do you need to elaborate upon? When they've said rich insights, which are the rich insights about psychodynamic theory and how it influences behaviors? So why phobias take place, that is understood. How family dynamics contribute to it. How dreams can have symbolism. All these things are relevant to the behavior, in this case Oedipus complex. So I can give examples of all of these. Now the reasoning, I've said it's a strength. So what is good about this? Why is it good if we are getting rich insights into such behavior? Because we understand the trajectory of psychosexual development. and its impact on personality as proposed by Freud. That definitely links to validity. It really increases the validity of the approach, of idiographic approach, because it helps us to understand so accurately exactly what is happening in that given stage. Another point would be weakness. So my next point would be weakness of idiographic is that it might not be generalizable. Of course, it is a trade-off or converse. Here, whatever is going to be the strength and weakness, the opposite is going to be the strength and weakness of the nomothetic approach. That is expected. So, in fact, if you're running out of points, sometimes students struggle. I know nomothetic, but I don't know idiographic for AO3. That's how easy you can bring it to mind. You know a strength of nomothetic, it's generalizable. That's going to be the weakness here, as simple as that. So we can say the weaknesses limited generalizability. Okay, to elaborate here, what we can say is again, Little Hans case is very specific to his unique family dynamics. His father was strict, you could mention that, and maybe in other families there could be different dynamics. The fathers might not be as strict in their upbringing, or they might be ignorant of what is happening with the child. Yeah, the father is involved, he's concerned, he's conversing with Freud. So definitely he is uh, acting towards Hans at home also. Everyone's circumstances are not the same. So these are very particular, unique circumstances of Hans. Not only that, there is the subjective element that Freud was interpreting entirely what was happening with Hans, which could also result in his case being very, um, not being very, but being presented with a very unique perspective. The way Freud has interpreted it and presented it is something that might not even directly represent what Hans was undergoing, let alone generalize to others. If you want this point which I'm putting, if you know about it well, you could put it's a strong point, that's why I'm putting it. It was later discovered that there were some family issues with Hans's maternal line. There were cases of psychopathology in Hans's mother's side. Her father, apparently, and brother had committed suicide. So, Hans developing a phobia might have nothing to do with the whole Oedipus complex at all. It might be to do with some genetic issues. And one more thing which came out later is that Hans had seen a horse falling on the road, which might have really petrified him, given that he was a very young child in the phallic stage, 3 to 5 years. So that could have been the reason for his phobia. So later explanations have been there. I've just verbally given you two examples. You could take any one of those, which suggests that Hans's case might be quite unique. Maybe what Freud is saying is right, but then there is a contribution of his unique genetic influences also, and some incident perhaps that he's witnessed on the street of the horse falling. So too many particular things combining, integrating together, and resulting in the development of his phobia. So the same circumstances being created for, say, another child and resulting in the same type of phobia, same behavior, seems very unlikely. So that unique constellation of factors which is there for Hans might not be applicable to other cases, which really reduces generalizability. So later explanations suggest that there is a unique integration of factors combining to Hans's phobia. Now again, in the E part of it, I've said that this is a weakness, that it is not generalizable. So I just need to give further reasoning. Why is this a weakness? Because then we are not able to benefit from the case study and apply to other similar cases. So let's say there's another boy with horse phobia or any phobia. We're not able to take these findings to like further do some application or at least theoretically understand another case. So it's not useless, but it's very limited in its application and usage for other cases. Of course, we are evaluating the idiographic approach. As I said, we must never lose sight of it. So after I give my elaboration and explanation of what are the issues with the little hands case in particular, I need to link back to what is that reflecting about the idiographic approach. It shows that idiographic approach is not very generalizable. Whatever studies, be it Hans's study or any other that has been done using an idiographic approach, it becomes very limited in its scope. Now, similarly, I have to give strength and weakness for nomothetic approach. I will upload this document on my website. Whatever I write in these videos, I just upload a PDF copy and I always link it in the description box or pinned comment below. Sometimes I forget to mention. So definitely you can go on my website and download this copy for any future reference. One strength of nomothetic approach is what was the weakness of idiographic approach. It helps to establish general principles of behavior. I think this one is rather simple to explain compared to idiographic. So for reference to the Peterson and Peterson study that I took earlier, it helped to establish a general principle that short-term memory lasts for 18 seconds. This is not something that they have said for only the participants in their study or that's applicable only to them. In fact, they use numerous participants in their study. And repeatedly, memory was found to decline very sharply after 18 seconds had passed, which means it is applicable to many people already reflected in their study. Of course, it will go beyond the study to other people in the population as well. So it's a general principle found across people, indicating that STM duration is for maximum 18 seconds. What is good about it, if we can generalize, is we have some objective, like measurable conclusions about memory. We can understand lots of people's memory by using this approach. We understand short-term memory in general. So it's not like we've understood how one person's short-term memory works. We've understood how short-term memory in general works. So we can say that it has broad application. If you want, you can give examples, say for UX design or for education. Uh, we want children to be able to remember things, so we keep in view that their short-term memory can last for 18 seconds. So we should try to give information in bite-sized pieces rather than giving very continuous information which they won't even be able to rehearse and it'll fade away in 18 seconds. You can give those things, or you could just generally mention broad application. And application does not mean only practical usefulness in this case, also understanding of how short-term memory store in particular works. So link-wise, like again, of course, we have to talk about the nomothetic approach broadly. Nomothetic approach has a much wider scope. You can compare it directly with idiographic. Beyond individual studies, it's not about one or two studies or their participants. It's about the population in general. And then coming to a weakness, it is not idiographic. So what was the strength of idiographic? Detailed data. We don't get detailed data, we get limited data. And that is why we cannot really account for individual differences. We can just understand broadly this is something that will apply to the average person or to most people. Whether it will apply to every case or not is very questionable. So we can put it as either does not help to understand individual cases or individual differences. So, uh, sorry, yeah, for the Peterson and Peterson, which I had taken earlier, there can be individual differences in memory. For example, let's say someone is making use of mnemonic strategies to extend their duration. As we know, chunking is the simplest example that can be used to increase both duration and capacity. So, if anyone is using such mnemonic strategies, in their case, we might find that their short term memory duration is extending beyond 18 seconds, say for a few minutes also. So, how do we explain that using findings like Peterson and Peterson? They don't explain such things. So mnemonic strategies might extend STM beyond 18 seconds. You can give examples of ecological validity as is relevant to nomothetic approach. Given that conditions were very standardized, the duration of backward counting task and the type of stimuli presented, like meaningless trigrams, was so fixed that in this case we see short-term memory lasts for 18 seconds. But what in real life circumstances their short term memory is going to be influenced by, say someone is stressed out so they're not able to remember things even for 18 seconds, less than that. Or say people are multitasking, again they be able to remember for less than 18 seconds, right? So these things cannot be explained. These are individual differences which can occur. Like even if we take stress or multitasking in real life, that can cause individual differences in how much someone's able to remember. So in Peterson, we understand okay, memory lasts for 18 seconds. The moment it doesn't, like because of the influence of these factors, we are unable to explain. So it does not help to understand these individual cases or which don't hold true for that principle. So for reasoning, for explanation, like why am I calling this a weakness? uh, it is like having a broad purpose, but when we need to do an in-depth understanding, say for example I want to help some case in particular to extend their short-term memory, I need to understand this case well. I'm not able to do that by having limited principles. So what we can say is these are Peterson particularly is an oversimplified, even you could use the term reductionist approach to understanding duration of memory, which restrains its applicability to most but not all cases. Definitely, the applicability is more than idiographic, which we have presented before, but then it cannot be applied to each and every case. It will make us miss out on many cases. We won't be able to explain them. So, now linking it back to the overall nomothetic approach just goes to show that nomothetic approach is like a breadth over depth type of approach, whereas idiographic is the depth over breadth type of approach. So we can say nomothetic approach is broad, it lacks depth which is needed to obtain rich insights into behavior. Okay, so that is my suggestion, and no matter which examples, topic areas you are taking, you can structure it in the same way. The points are going to be the same. Your examples only will be different. I don't have anything else to discuss about this. Like nothing is coming to my mind. Yeah, sorry. One thing is coming to my mind. There can be these, studies which show that idiographic approach was very useful in some particular case or nomothetic. And then students have learned that when it comes to AO3, and of course I totally agree with that, you should begin with a research study that is supporting the area. But do make an exception when it comes to synoptic topics like issues and debates or approaches, where in the question itself they have asked you refer to two topic areas that way. Because what happens is there where you start giving, say, in your strengths, this is the research support for ideographic approach being useful or nomothetic being useful, you're missing out on the opportunity like what we did in AO3. We went on, supporting those topic areas again, Freud's area and Peterson. You won't be able to introduce these things into your evaluation if some of your points are going to be about research studies generally supporting the approaches. So that opportunity is lost, I feel. So when it comes to debate and you're evaluating, I would suggest don't take those studies for evaluation. Rather, focus on the perspective. What is the strength and weakness of the ideographic or nomothetic perspective, and keep linking to the topic area. So that's why I have taken it this way. I'm not saying that approach is wrong. Maybe one or two of your points about research studies, the others are this way. Absolutely fine. This is what I feel makes for a better answer. Okay, so where we have 16 markers, then there is less to discuss because there are not many shorter questions that we could individually talk about. So that is all I have for this video. If you have any comments, suggestions, you could leave them in the description box below. Please don't contact on my personal contact number or email ID for anything to do with these videos. I will not answer them. If you want me to answer about these videos, any doubts that you have, you will have to leave a comment in the box below. Next time, I intend to do section B, cognitive and development, cognition and development. I know many of you would be doing other options and not that in particular, but it's very popular, at least with the students whom I teach. The UAE students, most of them are doing cognition and development. So because it's popular, I'm going to be taking up that one. And similarly, schizophrenia, very popular, UAE, UK, everywhere I'm seeing it's very popular. So I'm going to be taking that in the next video. So I intend to make 2 more videos in the series. So very soon I'll be uploading them as well. You can keep a lookout for my channel. You could subscribe to the channel to get an update of whenever I post those videos. All the best. Exams are very close. On 15th itself you have paper 1. So all the best for all your papers and give it your best. I'll see you soon again. Goodbye.